Welcome, everybody. Welcome to an amazing another chance to get together with the amazing Chef Susan Barocas. This is done through the new Sephardic Digital Academy, through the Sephardic Jewish Brotherhood of America, and with our partner as well, Sephardic Heritage International DC. Today, we'll be doing some Sephardic comfort foods with Susan, who is not only a world-renowned chef, but actually cooked for the Obama White House not once, not twice, but 3 times, has written for the Jewish Food Blog and so many other incredible outlets. And we're so grateful to have Susan. By the way, Susan's not only doing this out of the goodness of how to welcome and make sure we all feel together at a time when we're feeling socially distant, but more importantly, she's done amazing events and programs for other community centers, for synagogues, for even family groups, and she's always available for other programming as well. So I want to encourage you all, if you like what you see, to reach out to her and see maybe you can do a program with your synagogue or community center as well. And I'm sure she'd definitely welcome it. So Susan, please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. What a nice welcome. It's so great to see you all here. I want to thank Ethan and the Sephardic Brotherhood and Ephraim Katzir from Shin DC for helping make all of these programs possible. It's really important in a time like this, and talking about comfort food could not be more appropriate. That's why I thought we have to do this. We really need to. Is my audio okay? Ethan?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me?
It should be good for the most part. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to just, when we talk about comfort food, you know, a lot of times in the United States, it means things like chicken soup, bagels, brisket, babka. You know, well, we Sephardim have our B's too. So we have barekas, boyos, baklava, bizcochos, buñuelos. And if we want, at some point, we can do a class on that. I'm not going to do those today because I know from looking at a lot of posts that there's a lot of people who already know how to do those things and are doing them. So I'm hoping to give you a couple of new ideas of Sephardic comfort food. You know, it's what we crave, it's what we need in tough times, when we're mourning, when we're sick, when we're in isolation. And it's also what we want in good times. We love, you know, to celebrate with people, and comfort food is also part of that. It's very related to our cultures, our families, and to our personal life experiences too. For instance, as some of you have heard me talk about before, for whatever reasons, kalamata, olives, and feta cheese, because I grew up with that. It was always in the refrigerator of my home. Whenever we had guests, that came out. So to this day, that's a comfort food and a treat for me. Or my father's lentil soup, which he made, I remember it so well. So lentil soup for me, even more than chicken soup, is a comfort food. And also the other thing about comfort food that I'm sure many of you have discovered is that preparing it for others provides great comfort as well. So we probably want to think about this kind of pleasure that we can get and give by having comfort food. And this is something that struck me from our dear friend Stella Cohen's book, Stella's Sephardic Table, which is, if you don't have it, it's a must-have in every kitchen. So Stella was writing about why she wrote her book. And she said that her adult children wanted her to write a cookbook that had the comfort food that they had grown up on. So simple stews, savory pastries like barekas, sweet confections that were an integral part of our celebrations dating back to medieval Spain. Baklava, grape leaves stuffed with meat and rice, exotic rice pilaf, and rice pudding. They remembered that we used to sprinkle their initials on the rice pudding with cinnamon, just as our parents did for us. That rice pudding is not the Ashkenazic version that's made with rice. It's a Sephardic version that many of you may know, you may not. It's called Sutlach. It's spelled many different ways, depending on what country you're in, what language you're speaking in. And it's interesting because this Sephardic version is made with rice flour or cream of rice. And we're going to make some today. It's so simple, so easy, so satisfying. You'll find this kind of rice pudding in many cultures that were influenced by the Ottoman Empire and by Sephardim in general. And I have to tell you that last summer I was at a brunch, and a 96-year-old woman whose background was Hungarian, North African, and French heard that I cook, that I'm a chef. And she immediately, I sat down across from her, she said, "Do you know Sutlach?" Immediately, it was the first thing that came to her head. And to her, that was a memory from her childhood. Who knows? You know, she has a lot of different Sephardic influences, so who knows where it came from. It's a lovely, delicate, creamy pudding, and it's traditionally served after breakfast on Yom Kippur. When it's made, traditionally, I'm gonna see if I can get this in the view for you. You can see that pretty well, okay. It's made out of pepitana. Pepitana is like a milk, so to speak, that's made from cantaloupe or other melon seeds that are soaked in water for 24 hours and the seeds in a cheesecloth that's squeezed. And it's supposed to be very restorative after a fast, very healthy for you. So today, you can make it with regular milk, or you can make it actually carved, or if you have any issues with lactose. Today I'm using coconut milk because it adds a really interesting flavor. And what we're going to do is I have in this bowl that you see, I have 6 tablespoons of rice flour, and you can use, like I said, cream of rice. And I have 6 tablespoons of sugar. I've made this also with less sugar, it works fine. And to that, what I'm going to do is gradually add 5 to 6 tablespoons of water. Good, yeah, good. And I'm just gonna keep whisking it and whisking it until I have a smooth paste. And what we're going for is a very smooth paste. This is what will set, this is the actual rice part. There we go. Pretty good, no lumps. Okay, by the way, if anyone has questions or comments, please put them in the chat, yes, and by the way, that was just gonna say, the recipes will be posted on the Sephardic Brotherhood website by tomorrow, I'm guessing. Thank you. I'm very happy to be doing this for everyone. Okay, there we go. So now that we have our smooth, creamy, what we're gonna do is bring the milk to a boil. And it's 4 cups of milk. And these cartons are so handy. Exactly 4 cups, in this case of coconut milk, as I said. All right. And we're gonna let that heat up to a boil, just a boil. And yeah, we're gonna get this away from the heat. Okay, and what we're going, by the way, you see the onions that are cooking here? We're going to be making a dish that dates back to when the Jews were in Iberia, before even the Middle Ages. And it's a very interesting dish with chickpeas and onions. We're going to be making that. So I'm prepping the onions so we won't have to wait. When it comes time to cook that, should have heated up the milk. Get rid of this. Okay. All right, so here we go. The milk is heating quickly. You know, if any of you have special comfort foods that you want to list in this chat, I think it'd be really interesting for all of us at the end to see what it is that is comfort food for each of us. And you could even list perhaps where your family roots are from, because that will also give us some more information as to maybe why that's the comfort food that you like. And so let me just see, No, coconut flour in this case won't work. Somebody asked. It won't work. This is really, that's a whole different kind of a pudding. The measurements would be different. Coconut flour just goes, like, soaks up liquid like crazy. So I don't know what the measurements would be exactly if you wanted to make a coconut pudding per se, but here it's a rice pudding. And it's so interesting, this idea of the initials in the individual serving ramekins. I can't tell you. I asked, I'm part of the Visita de Eldad, which is a group that Floyd Jagoda started in Washington, D.C. area. And it's to maintain Sephardic life and culture and Ladino language and song, poetry, prose, everything. And he started it many years ago. So I had surveyed several of the members of the Vegeta to see what's comfort food to you. And it is so interesting. Of course, there were a lot of barecas. Almond cake is another one that came up. There's barecas from cheese, meat, and spinach. All of them were mentioned very often. Some from phyllo dough, which some people's mothers made from scratch. And some from the more of a pastry dough. Okay, now Behan Trak, who some of you may know because she's the author of the wonderful memoir cookbook called The Muslim Man and the Pretty Jewish Girl. She says, when I need comfort food, it's usually because I miss the old days when my mother and my dear aunties would gather us together for a holiday or family event, and there's one dish that brings back those memories. It's semolina halava, irmik helvasi, which is a traditional Turkish recipe for a classic dessert of halava, but halava is different in many parts of the world from what we think of, the sesame halava. Wow. This is made with semolina flour. And it's served with cinnamon sprinkled on top and served either warm or cold. All right, I think we're getting to the point of just about boiling. Yep. All right. And Ethan, let me know if the audio ever is not good, because I don't want people to miss all of my pearls of wisdom. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to very gradually add this paste, and we're going to keep whisking as we do. And the trick to making this work is whisking and whisking and whisking. And that's how you get a lump-free pudding. And it looks like so much milk for how much rice flour is going in. Trust me, it works. I love making this. And sometimes I have been known to eat it for dinner, just because I can. Okay, so we're whisking and whisking. And what we're gonna do is in 4 or 5 minutes, it will have thickened some. All right. We're getting very close. I can feel it just starting to thicken. Now, I'm going to flavor it today with vanilla and orange zest. You can make this into like a rose pudding using some rose water, which is really lovely as well, if that's the flavor you like. Okay. And we're gonna keep going. Oh, I forgot to light up my dishes. All right. We're almost there. Okay. And this is something that you want to chill in the refrigerator. You can put it into individual ramekins, or you can put it into a big bowl and just serve it out of there, whichever you like. And I have done individual ramekins. Oops, I think my rigged up phone has just decided to fall down. Hang on a second. This is a very, you wouldn't believe what's holding this phone up. Nope, too much that way. I apologize. I have ordered equipment that was due to arrive and did not. That would have made this a simpler process. Let's see if we can get this to stay. All right. Well, we're close enough there. Here we go. All right, this is boiling, as you can see probably. Some bubbles breaking on the surface. Okay. And it is thickened. And let me show you what it's like. You can see. Can you tell that it's, see how it's coating the spoon? It has thickened. All right, we're gonna turn it off, take it off the heat. And now is when you add your flavor. So in this case, I'm adding orange zest from one orange. Smells good, just the zest alone. And it gives it some nice little flakes of color. And I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Yeah, well, okay. 1 teaspoon. There we go. All right. It's, if you could smell, I wish I had scratch and sniff Zoom. The smell of the vanilla and the orange together is really lovely. And that's it. Most people will sprinkle it with some cinnamon, and the tradition of sprinkling kids' initials is really lovely. I have done them for a large group, and believe it or not, we stenciled chai on each one and with cinnamon. It was rather time consuming, but people really were oohing and ahhing. I'm sorry, I am just getting, here we go. We're gonna put this in some ramekins. And have a wonderful, I will have some wonderful Sutlach. So I just want to show you what I would do with one of them. And this will make 4 to 8 servings, depending on how big your ramekins are. Plenty, okay. So what I want to do is show you, you can just, even if you want, you can just sprinkle, and it's lovely, just to, and that's Sutlach. Okay, now we're gonna, I think you all will enjoy making it. It's very simple, and you can get rice flour fairly easily, or cream of rice cereal can be gotten fairly easily at many grocery stores. So now when we talk about comfort food and we think about what there's such a wide range. If you think about like Garbaznos, for example, with all the various ingredients, leek, spinach, eggplant, zucchini, those are very popular, and I always make it for holidays. I make Garbaznos. This is really a food of our Sephardic ancestors in Spain. If your family traces back to Spain, how do we know about Garbaznos? We know about pochado mostly from Inquisition testimony. You were caught making pochado. That was damning evidence that you were a practicing Jew. And of course, we also know about it because people carried recipes with them when they left. But because there were no cookbooks in Spain, in Jewish cookbooks from the Sephardim, this is how we know about it, is the testimony. It goes by different names, almadrote, asfongado. In Persia, they make cuckoos, which are very similar, except they add a lot of herbs. It's similar to a frittata, but it usually has, the frittata has more egg proportionately. A pochado is very vegetable heavy. Also, eggy custards like flan are very much part of comfort food. And Sephardims have their own version of Jewish penicillin, including a Yemenite chicken soup that's got lots of turmeric and some herbs and maybe little meatballs, either with chickpea flour and meat. There's sopa de ajo, which is the garlic soup that's very popular. Also at Passover, many of us enjoy minas or meginas, which are like the matzah pies made with meat or made with spinach and feta. Also, I want to talk about fried food. This time we're not going to fry any, but it's a big part of Sephardic comfort food. First, there's the patties, like keftes de casa, the patties that are made from leek. And then there's all kinds of other vegetables. Zucchini is also popular. These are especially popular, of course. All the fried foods are at Hanukkah, but they're eaten year-round, including for Passover, when the leek are very symbolic of the springtime. And the fried dough, is so beloved. Let's see if I can. The fried dough is so beloved that it's in so many different cultures. It's a jachnun in Yemenite fried bread. Of course, many of us know buñuelos from Hanukkah, Passover. In Latin America, they're called bimuelos often, and that comes from the Sephardim or the conversos who escaped and made new homes in Latin America. Fenge in Morocco, which is like a donut or a fritter, similar to, it uses the same dough as a beignet, but the beignet dough is sweeter and the spinach dough is saltier. And the sweetness comes then from putting sugar or honey on it when it's warm out of the fryer and downing them that way. In India, there's jalabe. In Syrian Jews make zalabia. Persian Jews make zulubia, which is very interesting that they're closely related linguistically. And Iraqi Jews make zangola. So there you have it, lots of different kinds of fried yeast doughs. What I want to show you next, actually, is how to make a very quick baklava, because we love baklava, right? It's got a ton of butter, and it's not the healthiest thing that we could be eating. And also, it's very labor intensive. So I came up with a new way to do it, okay, which hopefully we're still, this is what you call improvising. There we go. That'll stay long enough. Considering myself lucky, it hasn't fallen into the into any of the pots yet. All right. So this way of making baklava is not only simple, but one of the lovely things about it is that you can make them and then just take 1 or 2 or 3 out of the refrigerator or the freezer. You don't have to have this whole big tray of baklava. And the way that we're going to make this today is using these little phyllo shells, okay? Oops, trying to get, there we go. So these are available from some gourmet grocers. They're online, they're from Middle East grocers. You just buy the phyllo shells and you make the filling, which in this case is it's supposed to be a cup and a half of nuts, a cup of walnuts, and then a half a cup of maybe pecans or pistachios, all chopped up. However, we're going to improvise here. This is actually a cup of pecans and a half cup of pistachios because that's what I have. And I know, hello? I know it will taste fine. Okay, so this has been mixed with a half teaspoon of sugar and an eighth of a teaspoon, like a good pinch of cloves. And some people are like, oh, I don't like cloves. Try it in something like this because it just becomes background. It just adds depth of flavor. It's really delicious. Now, most people will put sugar in their phyllo filling, in their baklava filling. I do not. We're going to be pouring on all this lovely sauce. And it really doesn't, the syrup is so sweet that you don't miss putting extra sugar in the filling. Okay, so this is, and the other thing that's wonderful about this one, there's no butter. There's no oil and there's no butter. So here we go. We just fill these lovely phyllo shells. And basically, you're just going to fill them and bake them off a little, 10 or 15 minutes. And you're supposed to have 30 shells. I only had 15. And so I will have extra filling and extra syrup. But again, this is cooking in the age of Corona, and we all have to improvise as best we can. And that's okay. It's actually quite good because the important thing is that we cook, that we enjoy our food, that we find comfort in preparing food for ourselves and for others. That's what matters. And you know, not just right now when we're in isolation. That's what always matters. That's the whole point of having good food. We remember our history and our culture and our families, and we enjoy preparing the food. Okay, we are there. These are going to go into the oven just for 10 or 15 minutes. And let me, all right, we're going to slip these in. They're at 350, by the way, just so that you are aware. And I'm going to set the timer for, I'll set it for about 13 minutes, just so I can check them at that point. And then we'll stop what we're doing and pour some of the syrup onto the individual cups of baklava of nuts. I wanted to talk about how you can preserve these. So I said you can pull them out of the freezer. Well, there's different ways you can freeze them. You can freeze them without any syrup on them. Okay, you just put them in a container in a single layer, preferably not a baggie where they could get crushed, but a hard container of some sort, in a single layer, and freeze them. When they're frozen, you thaw them about 30 minutes, put them in the oven to heat them up, but you only have to put them in a 350-degree oven for a few minutes. Now you can freeze them before you bake them too. I should back up. You can actually freeze them. When I put them in the oven, they could have gone in the freezer, and then you just would follow the directions, cooking them for 10 to 15 minutes, same as what the recipe says. But if you're going to freeze them at the stage where they've been baked, you just want to let them thaw and pop them in the oven for just a few minutes to heat them up. The trick with the syrup and the baklava, or actually with any of our wonderful many syrup desserts, kadayif, tishpishti, any of these, the trick is usually that you want one warm and one cool. So in other words, if your baklava is warm, then your syrup is cool. If your syrup is warm, because you just made it, you let your baklava cool. So that's one of the tricks to how to get really good absorption and not soggy. is that kind of hot and cold mix. You can also, one of the things that I've been doing is I freeze these after I've put syrup on them, which is a surprise to most people, but they work fine. I first did that when I was pregnant. I wanted to have baklava for the breech. So ahead of time, I completely made the baklava. I wasn't using the cups yet. And I cut it up and put it into individual wrappers and was able then to have somebody defrost it and pop it in the oven just for a few minutes, just to crisp it up a little. And that's what you would do with these baklava bites as well. And they're delicious. Now you can add a little extra syrup if you like at that point. You don't have to. And my phone is losing it. Okay, next time I will have a tripod. That will be, hopefully, and we won't be going through this. The problem is the heat is causing the tape to all want to go away. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Let's see how long we can do it. Okay, now we're going to make another dish, which comes straight. I'm sorry, I'm going to see if I can get this to work. Okay, here's my insurance. So now we're going to make a quick dish that's a great way to use chickpeas as a side dish or a main dish. And this is chickpeas with onions, honey, and pomegranate. It's adapted from the book A Drizzle of Honey, The Lives and Recipes of Spain's Secret Jews, which is a fabulous book. If you want to know more about what the medieval Jewish food was like, please, in Spain, get this book. It's wonderful. So what we have is, it's a very simple recipe, actually. And by the way, for the Jews of Spain, medieval Spain, chickpeas were a wonderful, good, cheap, and poor source of protein. Unfortunately, especially once the basically pogroms, but the riots started to happen against the Jews in Toledo and in Sevilla and other places, and shops would be closed because they would be destroyed. Chickpeas were a great protein source, an alternative, but they were used way before anyway because they're such a wonderful ingredient. And I think many of us are cooking with chickpeas now. So here's another dish that you may not know about that you can make. So basically, what I have is this onion. It says I had a huge onion, so instead of 2 medium ones, I had a huge one, and that's in here. And you want to let it just saute until it's soft, about 10 minutes. That's done. Then what we're going to do is add to that a bit of ginger. And I have to tell you, I often just grate the ginger with the skin. It's not, there's nothing bad ever happens. It tastes fine. If you're grating, you wouldn't want big chunks of it, of course. If you're dicing it, for instance, or mincing the ginger, you wouldn't want to do it. But for this, it works great. All right, so you're going to put in about a half teaspoon. I can smell it starting to release. It's terrific. All right, it smells great. And then we're going to put in ground cloves. Again, this was a very popular seasoning with Jews in Iberia. So it's really quite delicious. And we just put in this case, 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground cloves, okay? I happen to love cloves. So for me, this is a really terrific recipe. And the reason we have the spices beforehand, before the rest of the ingredients, is they release their aroma Their flavor deepens when you cook spices for just a minute or two with onions or garlic or any situation like this, a mirepoix with onions and celery and carrots, any of these things. And it's already smelling delicious in here. All right. And what we have next is a tablespoon of honey. Okay. We're going to add a tablespoon of honey to this mixture. And what you'll love about this is a kind of sweet and, oops, that means our, this is kind of like the sweet, and vinegary, sweet and sour combination of taste that is so popular in Jewish food. And it's interesting, it's popular in Ashkenazic and it's popular in Sephardic. And then we're going to add to this also a cup of pomegranate juice. And if you don't have any of these ingredients, technically you could actually make this if you wanted to. You could make it with apple juice if that's what you have. It wouldn't be horrible. It wouldn't be the same, but it would be okay. It is really lovely if you can get your hands on any of these pomegranate ingredients. It's not only lovely, it's also very authentic. And to me, part of the comfort of this dish is that there's such a connection to my ancestors. When I eat something like this, I think my ancestors could have eaten this when they were in Spain. Now we're going to add 2 teaspoons of pomegranate molasses. If any of you don't cook yet with pomegranate molasses, get some. And this one is not coming out. Let me get my backup. It's always good for a chef to have a backup. All right, another kind of pomegranate molasses. Whoop. All right, so we want just 2 teaspoons. You can see the mixture is starting to come to a boil. Here's 1, 2 more or less. Again, these recipes weren't even codified for a long time. So there is always a lot of different ways you can go with the measurements. All right. And then we have a half a teaspoon of wine vinegar. And that is that taste. Now I apologize, I totally forgot about the vinegar. Here we are. Okay, it's not a lot, but it's that dash of taste that just brings this dish to another level. Only a half a teaspoon. So it's not going to be vinegary at all, but it will have a punch of flavor. And I just want to check. Oh, these are done. I knew I was smelling them, and that's what you always want to go by. And we're going to take a minute. We're going to actually switch back to the baklava cups because the syrup is cold. And remember what I said, the syrup's cold, you need the warm cup. So what we're going to do is just add, carefully, somewhat, about a teaspoon to each cup. Now, I don't add the whole teaspoon and just pour it on. I try to add it a bit slowly so it has time to absorb and then go back. And this is it. This is all there is to it. These are done. And if you notice, there's no butter. I'm not saying it's a health food, but as baklava goes, this is a great way. It's delicious. Nobody knows. There's no butter. The problem with these is they're poppable. You know, if you have too many around, it's too easy to eat too many of them. All right. So here we have. And then I would ordinarily like go back and add a little more because I didn't add a full teaspoon to most of these. So that's what we have, baklava bites done. So we're going to go back and finish our other recipe. Okay, here we are. All right, now we're going to trade places again. Oops, I will fix the phone. Let's see. You know, we thought it'd be better to do something you could all see, more of what the cooking was. And I think it will be once I get the tripod. Thank you for bearing with me today. All right. Now we are going to finish our chickpeas. So we have basically this sauce in here, cooked for a few minutes, which it did, okay? And then we're going to add chickpeas. Now, these are canned, okay? These are canned chickpeas. I am not ashamed to use canned chickpeas. When I can, I do boil chickpeas. Basically, what you're going to use is one large 30-ounce can, two 15.5-ounce cans, or about 3 cups, more or less 3¼ cups, if you're making chickpeas from scratch, which of course is always a texture and flavor that goes a little bit beyond what this is, but it's okay. Okay, so we're going to add the chickpeas, and what we haven't added yet is salt and pepper. So this is a nice dish to add a good sprinkling of pepper. To it, because it really makes a difference. It kind of has a nice, goes along with the pepperiness and the vinegar and all that. Okay, that did not work. Well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to fool around anymore with the overhead. Unless I'm going to just, even if you want to disconnect that. The most important stuff has happened, and I'll show you what this looks like. A little salt goes in. And honestly, all right, here we are. And I'm going to use my, now you can, if I had found, which I did not, pomegranate, because they're out of season, then what you want to do is add the arrows from one pomegranate, the seeds from one pomegranate to this. What I will do with this, and thank you all because now I have wonderful food for dinner. What I will do with this is add some chopped parsley, and I've never done this, but I'm thinking it might be nice for a little crunch to add some maybe chopped toasted walnuts or almonds or even pistachios to this. Let me show you it cooking away. Okay, that's the dish. So simple, and flavors that are very unusual, and you will really enjoy them. Okay, so in the time that we have left, that was a bit of a romp. In the time that we have left, I would love to answer your questions. Let me see. The syrup, yes, the syrup is not just a simple syrup. The syrup that is used in almost all of these kinds of recipes that are, you know, pastries or whatever, soaked. It's a combination, in this case, of 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of water, And I like 3/4 of a cup of honey. Most people would just do half a cup of honey. I like the extra honey taste. And then when that all has a chance to cook down together, you add a tablespoon of lemon juice. I also in this, I will sometimes add some drops of rose water or put a cinnamon stick or two in there if I want an extra cinnamony flavor. The thing is to cook with how you feel and what you like. And not to be bound by recipes, but use them as jumping off points. Use them as guides and then have fun and riff on them. Okay. Cilantro, yeah, we could put cilantro. That would be very nice. And actually, that's what I have, not parsley. So you're right. I will probably put cilantro. This can be a side dish or it can be a main dish. You can serve this over, for instance, a lovely rice pilaf or just some plain rice of some sort and make it the main dish with a salad. You've got a great meal. But it can also be a side dish. So, and if it's a side, you're going to get 6 to 8 servings. If it's a main, you'll get like 4 or 5 probably. And the only name I know of this dish and the name that is in the cookbook, there came the phone. All right. The name that is in the cookbook is really chickpeas with onions, pomegranates, and honey. That's the name of the dish as far as we know, which is really interesting that there isn't another name. You know, I know you say somebody's saying you could add chopped craisins. Yeah, you could. That would change it. But you know, you could add golden raisins would be delicious as well in here. Like I said, enjoy riffing on things. A side of chapati or pizza and a little yogurt on the side. Excellent. That would be delicious. Oh, your grandma was doing eggplant with the chickpeas. Was she making this kind of sauce? Who is that? Erez? Maybe you could unmute and let us know. Was she making this kind of sweet sour pomegranate sauce or was it a different sauce? I know of chickpea and eggplant recipes, but they're different.
Oh,
Yes?
yeah, actually she was doing with the normal tomato sauce chickpeas with onions and so on, not with pomegranate, but she used some eggplants inside, some
Yes.
cute eggplants, and it
Yes.
has, he was saying in Spanish and Ladino that, and like I don't remember how we were saying chickpeas in Ladino, but like
Garbanzos?
what?
It's not, no, not garbanzos. Oh God, I know. My father used it. I'll tell you.
A berenjena, like that, yeah.
Yeah, berenjena is the eggplant. Yep. Nice.
So she
You
was.
make it?
You mean Billy Beezes? Do you mean Billy Beezes? Billy Beezes.
Avicas.
No,
Avicas con berenjena.
chickpeas, I think, are Billy Beezes.
That's another word for them.
Yeah.
But I think my father used the word avicas, if I remember.
Yeah, avicas o garbaznos. Avicas, I think. Avicas de berenjena. Yeah. And I remember that she was doing piscado de tierra as well with the berenjena. Do you know piscado de tierra? It's like you fry the kind of eggplant puree. You fry it like a kind of, it become we call it piscado de tierra because like it's from berenjena, but it's like as it's fried, like it's like a kind of fish. It seemed like a fish which is fried, like, you know, the fillet fish is in general fried, so it's similar to that, but it's a kind of, that's way of saying that, like kind of similar to that, but it's not fish actually. It's with eggplants that she was doing many things. Like I know that there's a Izmir kitchen book that more or less similar, that what was done in Greece, Crete, Rhodes, and so on.
Yes.
So my grandmother was born in Izmir, so she was always cooking the Izmir foods. And
Right.
like there's now a book that her cousin was part of the book about Izmir Sephardic kitchen.
Mhm. That's great, Ariz. Thank you so much. And what I love is in the chat, if you look how many different words there are for chickpeas, it's wonderful. You know, I take the Ladino class on Monday nights that the Brotherhood's offering, which is wonderful. It is such a good class with Brian. And I'm learning a lot. But one of the things I'm learning is, okay, so here's how we say it, but you can also say it this way or that way or that way. There's no wonder Ladino's hard. It depends on where you come from. There are so many variations. There's rules, and then there's lots of other ways of, and chickpeas are such a great example. Avicas are white beans. Garbanzos in Ladino. Okay, there you go. There's, I would not use orange juice instead of pomegranate juice. It's too acidic. I don't think you're going to want to eat a dish that is like a sauce of just orange juice, basically, but you might add a little if you wanted the flavor. I really think that you're looking at something more like apple juice that is unsweetened, and adding maybe just a touch more vinegar to counter the sweetness of the apple juice. You know what? I haven't tasted. Let's see. It's always important to taste our food, right? Oh, truly, it's such an unusual combination that we don't have generally in our modern American palates. We would not combine these flavors, the cloves and pomegranate and onions and honey, you know, it's just, and vinegar, and it's really lovely. So I do, once the recipe's up, I hope you all will try it. Do we have any other, oh, look at this, this is so cool. There's all this discussion of the cookbook, and I don't have it yet. I've heard about it, so I do need to get my hands on a copy. The recipes will be posted, Ethan, they'll be posted on the
Brotherhood website.
Brotherhood website. And also, you're recording this so that, because there's several people who've asked for a recording of the class, and that you usually post on YouTube with
Correct.
a link on the website.
Exactly. We'll post on YouTube, and we'll also post on our Facebook page as well.
Fabulous. That's great. Okay, so there's our hour. If anybody has any other questions, now's the moment. Otherwise, we will say thank you so much. Buenas tardes. Thank you. Merci mucho.
Thank you so much, Susan. Merci mucho. We say in Ladino, as Susan mentioned, toda raba, we say in Hebrew. And we say come con gana also in Ladino. You should eat with gusto and enjoy. Thank you all so much again for joining us today with our special Sephardic comfort food session with Susan Barocas, an amazing chef, an amazing friend for the Sephardic Brotherhood. And special thank you also to Sephardic Heritage DC for co-sponsoring this event, and to all of you for participating. Just a reminder, Susan is also available for all different cooking classes through your community institutions as well. And last but certainly not least, this is a part of the Sephardic Digital Academy, as we mentioned. It's a brand new partnership with the Sephardic Jewish Brotherhood of America and major Sephardic community institutions across the United States. You can find all the information about our different classes, including Ladino 101, including Parasha de la Semana, Parsha of the Week. You can find out about Torah classes, about Halakha, about philosophy classes, about Sephardic perspectives and learning. All these types of amazing classes through the Sephardic Digital Academy at sephardicbrotherhood.com/Sephardic Digital Academy. And we ask one other thing, if you're interested in learning more about the Brotherhood, if you're interested in even supporting one of these classes, we're trying to keep this all a nonprofit initiative and to keep this all as free as possible. So if you're interested, if you want to see more of these types of classes, if you're interested in sponsorship, please reach out to us. We'd love to get in touch with you. Merci mucho, Susan. Thank you all again so much.
Pleasure. Thank you all.
And semana buena. Have a good
Semana
week.
buena, come con gana.